Hello and welcome back. Today we'll be talking about the history of Valve and where they are today. Valve was started in the year 1996 by two men, Gabe Newell and Mike Harrington. These two were former Microsoft employees. They had left because it had forever been their dreams to build a successful software company. After only 2 years, they had come out with the first game developed by the Valve brand. This game was Half-Life, a first-person shooter where players take control of Gordon Freeman, a physicist who has to stop an alien invasion. This game, to the surprise of Gabe and his partner Mike, was a massive success and sold 1 million copies in about a year, and has been doing the same every year since the game was released. After this game, however, Mike Harrington left the company to spend more time with his wife. This is obviously a lie, however, because we all know gamers can't have relationships. After his partner had left, Gabe began working on Valve's next title, Team Fortress Classic. This was a grisly-looking war game that came out in 1999, which overall was not very interesting, but did lead to a certain game down the road that we will get to later. After this, Valve came out with the very first Counter-Strike game, which was yet another grisly war game that this time was actually interesting. This was mainly to do with its very fun multiplayer mode. Fun fact, this was originally a mod for Half-Life that gained so much attention by the community that Valve bought it off of the original mod creators. Counter-Strike was officially released in the year 2000 and sold 250,000 copies by 2001. This was obviously less copies than Half-Life had sold, but the first-person shooter genre was relatively new, as games like Doom had only come out 7 years earlier. Another big factor as to why it didn't sell very well is because by this time, AOL dial-up internets were still in full swing. Now, allow me to give any people from the 90s some serious flashbacks. There was a problem, however. Valve was having trouble with updating its games regularly and efficiently, but that was all going to be fixed soon. After Counter-Strike was out, Valve released something big that any person who plays on PC will foam in the mouth over: Steam. This service was released in 2003 as a way to quickly update Valve's games. This was also a way that third-party companies could promote their games and sell them at the same time. Naturally, this was a massive hit that was a cash cow that just would not stop giving. Steam was the first time the team got a regular source of money, which was mainly from the game sales, where Valve would be earning 25% of the money spent in each sale. Despite all of this success, only 20% of American households had broadband internet, with the rest still having dial-up. In fact, Steam didn't really blow up until the release of Half-Life 2. This had to do with the fact that the second installment of the game was a Valve property, so people had to sign up to Steam to play. By 2006, Steam had begun to earn some serious cash and had a library of over 100 games. Videos and game demos had also begun to show up on this store, which had shifted from an updating software to a place to buy games. In the following year, the community section had been added to the software. This included things such as the friends list, voice chatting, and community groups. In 2010, Steam had begun their very famous discounts, showing them as percentages off of the game on the Steam store. Ever since then, the store has grown and added more features and become even more developed. In 2020, Steam has a total of 95 million downloads and has made $4 billion in total. After the success of the Half-Life games, Valve stepped up and made many more popular games. For instance, in 2007, Valve released the first Portal game, which for those of you that don't know is a puzzle platforming game in which you play as a speechless protagonist who has to use portals in clever ways to get out of test chambers. These test chambers are set up by a robot named GLaDOS, who despite being the villain is really likable, which is something pretty hard to pull off in a game. Next up, Valve came out with another smash hit, Team Fortress 2. This is a cartoony sequel to the game Team Fortress Classic. This game had very colorful characters that all played different roles in the match. These characters were all advertised in YouTube videos in the Meet the series, which displayed all the characters and their personalities. This game, like most of Valve's multiplayer games, is still popular to this day, but is not as popular as it was whenever it was originally released. The next game Valve released that was very well received was Portal 2 in 2011. In this game, you again play as Chell and team up with the villain of the last Portal game to take down a 2 IQ core who has taken over the facility. This game has much more humor than the predecessor and is a very fun game to play. The next year, Valve released a game called Counter-Strike Global Offensive. This was yet another game in the Counter-Strike series, but this one is by far the most successful, mainly because of its advanced mechanics and its great graphics. This is again a very popular multiplayer game Valve has put out and is still played by many people today. After this, Valve had some on and on releases of games, and they slowed down on their production mainly because of the success of Steam. So that brings up the question, what is Valve doing today? Nowadays, Valve is mainly focusing on updating Steam and giving odd updates to games such as CSGO and TF2. This doesn't mean that Valve is done making games, however, as they have come out with a third game in the Half-Life series. This game is Half-Life Alyx, in which you play in the world of Half-Life and keep on shooting those bad guys. But as of 2020, Valve is mainly focusing on Steam, and that is the history of Valve. I would like to thank all of you watching to this point, and if you could like and subscribe to me, it would be greatly appreciated. See you all in the next one.